So let us begin. This is the last social work class for the year. Of course, we will resume in January. All your compulsory lectures are on the portal though, and your work is there so you can continue studying. This is just the last enrichment session as such. Today we're going to be looking at, we did group work, how to handle groups, how to engage with groups, how to set up groups. Now we're going to go a bit deeper into a very specific method, an idea behind working with people. And this is applied to groups and it's applied to individuals who enter your office or enter your space. All right. And in that, I know it's called counseling skills. It's probably better to name it interpersonal skills as such, but we will get there. First, let us just check on who we have with us. All right. Got Jackie, Sophia. Is it you and Shakira? Yes.
Hello, Bhupender. Speak for yourself. Good evening, sir. Yes,
Hello.
we here, but we in the car
Okay, that's
driving.
it's going to be fine. We have Bonnie with us, and we also have Frederica with us. Okay, perfect. So, what we're looking at today, Jackie, can you still hear me? I see all the mics have disappeared.
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So what we're looking at today
I'm here.
is interpersonal skills. We're going to learn a method called the Soler method, Soler. I don't know if you've come across it before. And we're going to learn to apply that a little bit. All right. So number one is the concept of attending, right? So Carl Rogers, who is quite a very famous psychotherapist, right? He said attending and listening means that you lay aside yourself. This can only be done by persons who are secure enough in themselves that they know that not get lost in what may turn out to be a strange and bizarre world of the other, and that they can comfortably return to their own world when they wish. This is a lot of the basis of what we in therapy call transference, countertransference, presence, attending, right? So the principle of attending is being able to enter a situation, right, as yourself without losing yourself in that process, which is one of the biggest challenges you'll face as a auxiliary social worker or even within the counseling aspect of this field. All right, so attending skills looks at how we are present. Okay, how we are present. And it's based on the Soler principle. And the Soler principle is purely a physical response, right? So we're not looking at the words you're using. We're not looking at how you're talking. We're looking at the physical body placement within attending, okay, to show attention. So the S for Soler stands for squarely facing the client. What does that mean? It means body square with the client. You're not standing and talking to a client. You're not seated on the floor while they're seated on the chair, right? You are square with the client. Why is this important? There's a power principle that our primitive brain clicks into, right? If somebody's standing and talking to you whilst you are seated, there's an inherent exchange of power where they are perceived by your primitive brain as being more powerful, more important. You need to be shy, you need to be reserved around them. This is the messaging, right? If somebody's below you, the opposite is true. You cannot trust somebody who sits below you, below your level in that way, right? You'll find that we've built it into our social lives, into our environment. When you go up to see a queen, a president, a mayor, what happens? There are stairs leading you up to the person, right? There's a podium, right? There are stairs going up, and that signifies a power relationship, right? So in a session, When we are talking to someone, whether in group or outside of group, right? We sit squarely facing, we sit equal, right? The O stands for open posture, right? What does this mean? Let me switch on my camera and show you. Right. I cannot see how I look on this. It's guessing, but it's there we go. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate open posture, right? If you are seated in front of me and I'm seated like this in front of you, right? Body, what impression am I giving you? If you're coming to tell me something and I do this with my arms over my chest, what impression are you getting? I think you,
For for me, it feels like you are bored.
yeah,
Just can't hear and get over with.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm bored. I'm really not present with you. I'm not actually interested in what you're saying. All right.
Yep.
If, and I don't know how we're going to demonstrate this, if I'm seated like this, fully back like this, whilst you're talking to me, I'm leaning back in my chair, my hand over my stomach, right? Frederica, what impression does that give you?
That you're really not interested in what I'm about to say.
That's it, right? I couldn't be bothered, right? So sometimes we need, not sometimes, always, we need to be very, very aware of our programming with our body, right? So this square, when you're seated, the square from your neck, your shoulders, all the way down to your pelvis, right, is your focus area. This should be a set square. Nothing goes into this square, right? You do not do this. 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 You don't cross your hands. Nothing goes into the square. The square is open, right? Open posture allows people to open up. When we're sitting in group, we do not do, for example, let me put this laptop down here. We do not sit like this in group, right? Do you see how the square is not straight? It is not a clean square, and I've crossed my hands on my knees. It's comfortable, right, for me, but it's sending the wrong message to the group, right? And it does not allow other people to be comfortable. So we open our posture. Our back is straight, flush with the chair is usually a helpful idea. Straight, your arms on your side. If you need to rest a hand, you rest it on your knee, right? You don't cross the square. All right. Lean in on occasion. L is for lean. You lean in on occasion. The important word there is on occasion. What does this mean? It means if I want you to give me more information, I come closer to you, right? For a few seconds, step back, right? So I go into your space to show you you're safe and I'm not attacking you and I'm stepping back. The Soler principle relies largely on our animalistic brain. So when you're talking to somebody and you lean, what message is that sending to them, Safia? Sorry, could you try one more time? Okay, I think your network's a bit bad. Okay, I think your network's a bit bad. Oh, there we are. Hello.
Okay, I think it shows a sign of interest.
Yeah.
It shows a sign of interest, inquisitiveness. What that word? I don't know. A pretty word would be inquisitive, but interested in what the person has to say. Genuineness, blah blah blah.
It's an invitation. It shows interest. It shows inquisitivity. It's an invitation to tell me more. And it's an affirmation of what you are saying. right? If I lean in, I'm inviting you to tell me more and I'm affirming what you are saying. But if you are talking and the whole time I'm leaning into you, right? What impression is that going to give you, Jackie?
I think that would be quite threatening. You're constantly in a person's space.
There we are.
It's a little too intense.
There we are. So you might be really interested in what they're saying, and then you're going to spend half an hour leaning forward. You've now become threatening. Right? You have now become invasive of their space. So, but go back to open posture. We lean in on occasion. We step back out of there to allow them that space and that safety to move. Okay. Not finally, penultimately, we have eye contact. Okay. Now, there's a lot of debate, and I'm sure every single course you've been to will have told you that we have to be culturally aware of eye contact, and some cultures don't make eye contact, and all of that, right? The principle here is this. When I make eye contact with you, right, I'm showing you I trust you. I'm showing you that you can trust me. The eyes, right, are a subconscious message to the brain of where the person is. Now, eye contact can be soft, it can be hard, right? A good idea for eye contact is to not focus necessarily on the eyes as such and enter a blinking contest, but to focus on the forehead or the mouth, right? By maintaining eye contact, even with people who do not want to who are not culturally used to eye contact, you invite them into a safe space. Oh, sorry, let me just kill that call. Okay. You invite them into a soft space. Okay. If your eye contact is fleeting, if you're making eye contact, then looking away, and then eye contact, then looking away, right? You're showing distrust. So you maintain eye contact, your chest is open, you're looking at them. What that's telling them is I'm present with you, I'm not a threat to you. When people enter a group, when they enter a session, when they enter your office, they're coming in vulnerable, right? Nobody goes to see the social worker if they are not already having a problem, right? Or they're about to find out they have a problem. All right. So eye contact, very important. Finally, sort of counterintuitively, we have relaxed and natural behavior. What does that mean? It means that you are not stiff, right? You do not stiffen your body in any way just to maintain the square and maintain the eye contact, right? The way you position it. So let's go back a little bit to where this comes from, right? In nature, a stiff body, an unrelaxed body, right, is doing one of two things. It's about to hunt something. Think of cats, think of lions, they stiffen their bodies, right? They go into a pose that's unnatural, right? Before they jump. When you walk into, imagine you are our predecessor. So there you are in the bush, you're hunting, all right? And your friend that you're hunting with, this buck, suddenly goes very stiff. What message is that sending you? I'm afraid there's something wrong. Something terrible is about to happen. So logically, our brains are, of course, advanced. Subconsciously, our brains are not. We are still largely glorified Neanderthals, right? So we still follow that programming. Have you ever walked into a room and you go like, I don't know, that person just doesn't feel right. They feel like there's something wrong. I'm guaranteeing you it's because the behavior and the positioning of the body is unnatural, right? You can tell if a person is relaxed from how they sit, from how they stand, from how they move, right? It is your job when somebody's in that space to relax into it and to get them to relax also, right? Just want to see. Okay, I'll catch her when she comes out. Sorry. All right. So let's relax the natural behavior. In the context of the Soler method, it is something that takes continuous practice, right? Because for us, it might not be natural to sit with our back straight, right? As soon as you sit with your back straight, what's the intention? Usually you want to put your chest out, right? Because your arch of the spine wants to compensate, right? So if you can now, whilst you're seated, try and sit so that your buttocks are solidly on your chair, right? Lift yourself up so that your square is directly open, right? Feel that you don't have more pressure on one leg than another leg. Your core is stable. Now notice your shoulders. Did your shoulders come up? If they went up, drop them. And then lean further into it and breathe into your stomach. There's the Soler, right? Once your body rests into it, you're there. This position also puts you in a receptive space because as well as programming others, it's programming you to receive. Okay, so that's the Soler, and I'm going to actually ask, wait, how come, okay, obviously Sophia not because they're in the car. Frederica, can you switch on your camera? Are you in a position to be able to, or do you just need to not be on camera at the moment?
Do I really have to switch on my camera?
You don't have to if you don't want. If you don't feel comfortable with it, that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
Okay. Jackie, you also. Okay, Frederica, can you put the phone a bit away from you and show me how you sit with an open posture? There we are. Relax your shoulders, breathe into your stomach. Relax your right arm.
I'm
Okay.
on the phone.
Yes, no, I can see. Okay, perfect. You've got it. You've got it. Well done. Well done. All right. Do you see how your chin naturally comes up also? All right.
Yes.
That's good because that's attentive. Okay, good. Bonnie,
Okay.
can you show me? Thank you,
Oh
Frederica.
my God.
Oh, Bonnie, can you show me? All right, Jackie, can you show us?
Sitting on a bed, so it's quite hard. The only like safe place in the house at the moment.
Okay. What is happening here? Safia, right? Is Jackie sitting with, is she sitting squarely? Oh, you can't see her. Okay, that's fine. Frederica, let's work together on this. All right. Is she sitting squarely? Okay, Safia, is she sitting squarely?
I can't see her. I can't see her.
I don't also cross. See this seat is open on the left.
Oh, Safia, I know you're saying the right thing. I can hear some words. Say it again.
I'm saying our fingers are interlaced. It needs to be open.
There we are. Okay. Right. So we do not close off, we open up. Right. Of course, it's difficult the way you're seated now. There we are.
Yes,
Open.
just slightly.
Right. There we are. Now we're there. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. You can switch off your camera. Thank you for being the test bunnies. Okay. Perfect. Let's talk about non-verbal cues. So I'm sure many of you have heard this whole story that 97% of your communication is non-verbal and 3% of it is your words, right? I mean, there's no way we can fully measure how much of it is each, but we do know that non-verbal carries a lot more than verbal. So I want you to think of it like this. Your words are saying one thing. Your non-verbal communication either supports or detracts from what you are saying. So your words either inform and validate or invalidate what you are saying. What does this mean? Right? It means that the way you position your body, the way you're moving your body tells me more about you than your words tell me about you. Right? Your facial expression tells me a lot more about whether you mean what you're saying. If I say I'm happy, but my face is not smiling, I'm not happy. If I say I'm sad, but I'm laughing and jumping up and down, I'm not sad. Right? So it validates what you're saying. There is a theory I have, which is this. You know, rock, paper, scissors. All right. We have words, environment, and action. Right? Your words are like the weakest one. Over it, you have environment. Over it, you have action. So action trumps environment. Environment trumps words. Right? So your words carry very little weight. If your words do not match your environment, then I cannot take your words. If your environment doesn't match your actions or your words do not match your actions, then I need to believe the action or the environment before your words. All right, that's the best sort of way to work around it. And we'll get into that theory a little later and how it works. Also, our brains, remember, our eyes developed very late within our evolutionary process. Right? Our eyes developed long after our ears and long after our nose and long after our sense of touch. The first thing we developed was touch, then hearing, so we could hear the predators coming, then smell, right? Then taste, and finally eyes, right? If you want to go evolutionarily to it. What this means is that, right, our ears are very advanced. So when we hear the way a person is speaking, right, and it doesn't sound correct, we should trust that gut instinct. All right. And then, of course, there's physical appearance and physiological responses. So, for example, if I'm talking to you and I'm doing this, right? Frederica, what does that mean if I'm doing this the whole time whilst I'm talking to you?
That you're nervous, something's just not right.
There we are. I'm nervous. Something isn't right. Right? Bonnie, are you back with us?
Sorry about that, Nick. I'm back.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Bonnie, if I'm talking to you and I'm doing this, all right, what emotion am I portraying?
Yeah.
What am I actually saying to you if I do
Well,
this?
to me, it's like feels when are you going to finish with this? Because wow.
Okay, it could be frustration. If it's up here, it's frustration. If it's down here, it might be shame, right? So when a person is
Yes.
talking to us,
Mm-hmm.
right, we are listening to their words, but we're also matching what their body's doing because your body struggles to lie, right? Your body struggles to lie. Now, truth comes into this very much. And I'm going to touch a little bit on it just for some fun fact. It is our last class, right? We as humans are obsessed with finding a truth, right? That's why we have polygraph tests. And before the polygraph test, we used to have the rice test where you put your hands on rice and to tell a story. And if rice sticks to your hands, you've lied because obviously you sweat. That was the theory behind it in China, at least. And before that, we used to have a sword on your tongue. And if the sword moved off your tongue and took some skin with it, it meant that you had told the truth, right? No, you had lied because your mouth dries up when you lie. So we're obsessed with the idea of, are we being deceived, right? Remember, animal brain, if you are being deceived, you are going to end up dying, right? In nature, the only things that deceive you are things that are trying to hunt you in some way, right? Or avoid being hunted. So it's not a safe situation. Chameleons, cats, animals that blend into the environments, they do that to be able to hunt. So we are very programmed to finding truth. So we look at how the body moves, what the physical appearance is, and that stays with you. That doesn't change. Okay, so your nonverbal cues are very important. Based on all of this, right, we get to active listening. Now, this is something we've done already. We're going to build onto it a little bit. Number one, we ask the client, where are you in your life? And then we listen. Right? We did this last time. We've already practiced this quite a few times. We're not going to go back into it. Right? Importantly, what are you listening for? You're listening for gaps, distortions, dissonance, and themes. Gaps, distortions, dissonance, and themes are more important than the words. Right? So when you're listening, you're looking for, wait, is there a section missing? Is there distortion? Right? Does something not make sense? Are they saying something and their body's showing something else? Is there a dissonance? Are they maybe relating it to a verbal dissonance, for example? Let's say I'm telling you about the biggest trauma that I've experienced. And I say, but it's fine, right? What does that mean? I've dissonance. There's dissonance to it because it doesn't match what I'm saying. And finally, I'm looking at themes. Listen to allow empathy, we've covered. Now, listen with appropriate interruption. Basically, don't interrupt. If you interrupt, or when you get to speak, ask a question. Very importantly, we listen to oneself, right? You listen to yourself whilst listening to the person, right? Because you will have those natural built instincts that look at behavior, body, movement, voice. Right? Do you understand what I'm saying up here? Is everybody with me up to this point? Because that is quite a tough concept to get to.
Yeah, it is tricky.
Okay, perfect. So what does that mean? Right? It means that if you enter a session and your brain is a jumble, or you're going into group work and your brain is a mess, you're thinking and overthinking and stressed and worrying, right? You are not going to actually be able to listen. Even if you don't interrupt, you're not listening, right? You need to clear yourself so that you can listen, right, through your perception of what the person is saying, through perceiving their body, through perceiving their voice, and in that way. Finally, with active listening, we never diagnose during discussion. We never diagnose during discussion. If you feel yourself, as the person's talking, going, oh yeah, they've got depression, you've stopped listening. Right? Oh, it sounds like they have anxiety. You've stopped listening. Right? You need to diagnose after discussion. Right? The
That's very
time
hard for judgmental people like me.
that is, it is. It's very difficult to do. Right? Because as soon as you have a diagnosis, what happens? Your brain, because it's a problem-solving machine, says, okay, well, let's fix it. What are we going to do? A, B, C, D, E. Now you're having a whole internal dialogue with yourself, and that person is lost along the way. All right? So whenever we look at diagnosis, we look at diagnosis apart from the discussion. When you're listening, your only job is to listen. Because you're listening to two people, aren't you? Listen to yourself, listen to others. So it's a whole mess of listening. You don't have time to diagnose also. All right. Empathy is not what I would feel as me in your shoes, but what I would feel as you in your shoes. Okay? So empathy, according to Carl Rogers, who is the father of the idea of counseling. Counseling is actually an American word, termed, I think, by him or by his peers anyway, right? It means entering a private perceptual world of the other person, becoming at home in that. It involves being sensitive every moment to the changing felt meaning which flows into this other person. The rage, the fear, the tenderness, the confusion, whatever it is that they're experiencing. It means you temporarily live the other person's life, moving in it delicately without making judgment. Okay? We're not going to get too much into empathy. Well, into that definition of empathy. I think it's a pretty quote. There's a lot to unpack there, but this is in the Carl Rogers course. All right, so with empathy, what are we trying to do? Number one, right? We are welcoming ourselves into that person's world, not as us in that world, but as them in that world. So you cannot be thinking as yourself, reacting as yourself in that situation. You are them in that situation when they are talking. That's to really, really understand the depth of what it is. We use it to convey warmth, caring. It's used to affirm a client's strengths in the midst of their struggle and to come alongside them. Okay, so how do we break this down to the body? Number one, right? Before you respond, I want you to count to 3 or 4. Before you respond to anything, count to 3 or 4 and let the words. Number 2, you use a short response. You don't over elaborate because this is not your story. Number 3, don't mimic, right? We remain yourself, but allow yourself to feel what they might be feeling. All right. A few things you don't do when you're trying to show empathy, right? We don't do no response. We acknowledge, we respond. We don't do a question, we do a reflection. So when the moment for empathy arises, we do a reflection, not a question. Right? If somebody has just shared something with you that's really weighing on their heart, the last thing they want from you is a question. Right? They want validation. That's it. A cliche, which is like a pat on, like, things always work out for the best. Or God only gives challenges to those who can handle it. Right? Nobody wants that because then you've removed yourself out of that situation. We don't interpret a person's situation ever, right? We don't interpret it. We do not diagnose it. We do not think what it could mean. We allow the situation to sit. We don't use this as an opportunity for giving advice. We don't parrot, so we don't say it back at them, right? Unless it's a minimal form of reflection. What I'm hearing you say is this, right? And we don't do Okay, perfect. I feel like we should be doing more practical work today, but we're not. Alas, we proceed.
Nick,
Yes, hello.
okay, we're back home, right?
Hey.
The difference between parroting and paraphrasing.
Okay, so parroting is when I take your words that you have just said and I throw it right back at you,
Verbatim.
right? Verbatim. Paraphrasing is
What you do when we argue.
paraphrasing is when I take what you're saying and I summarize it and give it back to you.
Okay.
Okay. So it is slightly different from the attentive listening module where you'll just repeat the last words of everybody's sentence. Right? When empathy needs to be key, you don't do that, right? You listen and you allow. Make sense?
Yes.
Right. Remember, we're getting very technical now into a discussion. So there's a lot of information. A lot of it you'll see in practicality. But what happens is this. You're sitting in a group setting or you're sitting in a one-on-one setting. Somebody shares something really deep to the group that they feel is deep, that is burdensome on them. And they've now put this out on the floor. Our natural instinct, because we are herd creatures, right, is to either make it better or to share with it. Right? And now it makes me think of this, or there we're interpreting it. Right? A good group, a good session doesn't do any of that when empathy is needed. When direction is needed, when advice is needed, which we don't give, it is completely different. Okay. Let's go on to probing and encouraging. So sometimes we need empathy. Sometimes we need to probe and encourage. When that becomes the theme of the session, right? Sorry, excuse me. When that becomes the theme of the session, number one, we don't ask many questions. When we do ask questions, we ask questions that serve a purpose. We ask open-ended questions, and our questions we ask are intended to help people talk about specific experiences, behaviors, or feelings. So we don't ask an open-ended question where we do not know what the goal of that question is. Right? We keep focus on the client, right? Where are you? How did you experience this? Right? What did it create in you? What feelings did it bring up in you? Right? It's them, them, them. Then, straight after you've done that first bit of probing, we move on to encouraging. Because probing and encouraging come together. When you probe, you put people in a vulnerable situation. When you encourage, you're supporting them within that and helping them grow. Okay, this is the growth model, just in a smaller way. We then move to asking questions only after we've asked open-ended questions that serve a purpose, right? We ask them questions that help them move forward in the process, right? Very importantly, right, and maybe the most important part of probing is we always check in with the patient about how they are handling this process, right? Whether it is in group or individual, we always checking in with the patient, right? How are you handling this? How's this working for you? Are you finding that this is beneficial to you? Is there some changes you want to make? Have you become too vulnerable? I mean, you can do the JAWS activity, maybe, which is quite helpful. And actually, let me guide you through it. I'm expecting either an explosion or something anytime. There's people marching by. Okay. All right, so let's do this. Get comfortable. Seat yourself squarely. All right. Close your eyes. Uncoil your hands, your legs, your feet, whatever's like wrapped up and closed. Open it up. Take a deep breath. All the way to your stomach. I want you to imagine a room. Any room. A room that is hidden in your brain. Any room, no matter how it looks. I want you to start putting chairs in that room so it's like a waiting. Right? And next to that room, it's another room. Keep breathing deeply. Put as much detail into the waiting room as possible. Then I want you to go into the room next to it, to the main room. And you're going to start decorating it in your mind. There's a chair, there's a couch, there's a place to sit, there's a blanket or a mat, sorry, on the floor, a carpet, maybe it's tiles. There are shelves. Imagine the colors of the wall. Imagine the containers. Imagine the decorations of the room. Sit on that chair. This is a quiet, safe, quiet space for you. Make sure that this room is perfect for you. Now, you're going to imagine a container. On one of the shelves or on the side table, wherever, a container. It can be any type of container you want, but I want you to hold it, imagine it, picture it, feel it. Open the container. And I want you to now find something inside of you to put into that container, a feeling, a hurt, something you're struggling with, the emotions of something. I want you to feel it. You take yourself out of it and you put it in that container. How does it look? How does it feel? And close that container. Put the container back on the shelf. Sit back in the chair. Get back up. Find another container. Put something into that container. Grief, suffering, a painful memory. Put it in that container. Close it and come back to the chair. Sit on the chair. Make sure your containers are closed. When you're ready, you can walk out of the room into the waiting room. Make sure the door is closed. It's your safe space. Start moving your fingers, finding yourself. You're now back in the session. Ready. You can open your eyes. Okay. What we've done there, and we did a very brief approach to it, right, is a very useful technique where we allow a patient to put things into boxes that they can then bring out. I would do this in session 3 or 4, right? And then allow people to come in and you can say, listen, are we going to open one of the containers today? What's in there? Or do you want to put something in a container? And this becomes a good measuring tool for the rest of your session. Group or individual becomes a great measuring tool. If you find that the patient is getting into very dark territory, they're really struggling a lot, go back to that space with them, put it into a container, right? If you do this in the beginning of the journey with your clients or patients, you'll be able to have a reference point back. It also allows you to measure how they're handling the process, right? You can say, listen, I think we're going to put this in a container and unpack it again next week. Let's pack it in, take a few deep breaths, much slower, of course, than I did it, and let's pack it away. All right. Are we all with me up to this point?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Perfect. All right. Self-disclosure. We actually had a question about this in another class this week. Was it last week? I'm not sure. One of the weeks. All right. When do you disclose something about yourself? Right? Number one, you don't. But if you must, all right, you need to consider, right? Why does the client need to or want to know this? How will it help the client? Who am I centering in this sharing? Who's taking the stage in this sharing? How do I feel about this information? If their client goes and tells everybody and publishes it in a newspaper, would I be comfortable with it? Right? Use those as guiding tools. Overall, we don't disclose because it is not our show. Right. Dealing with resistance, we're not going to go into too much detail today. This is something everybody in this class, except for Cornelia and Frederica. Oh, no. Oh, will know of. And it's the Prashaka changing for good method of stages of change. Okay. So remember we spoke about a group, and a group is formed with a mission. It then does the actions, the boundary setting, then the action, then it dissolves. Right? Within that process, right, a lot like when we did in coaching, Shakira Sophia, is you have stages of change. Right? So we're going to touch on it a little bit today, then we're going to let it be. Right? Number one is pre-contemplation. Pre-contemplation is, right, before I know that there's a problem. I'm not even aware that this is a problem yet. Then I have contemplation. I'm now aware of the problem, I'm thinking about the problem. Then I'm preparing to address the problem. Then I'm taking action based on those preparations. And finally, I'm maintaining the new behavior. Okay, very simplified. We'll, of course, have to do a lot more detail on that. So your group should be going through this. No one is coming to your group pre-contemplation, right? You might have one or two people coming in the contemplation phase. They wonder, do they have an alcohol, drug, obesity problem? Do they have a problem with self-esteem? Is there an issue? Does it mean others in your group, most people in your group will come in the preparation and the action phase. They're now gathering the resources to address an issue and they're taking actions and supporting each other. A very small percentage will remain in the maintenance for long-standing groups where they come and check in every now and then to keep going. Okay, so what do you do, or what would you do if a client comes to you, right, and you can see a problem that they cannot even see yet, right? So they are pre-contemplation. Safia.
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
So a client has come to you, they've entered your office,
Yeah.
and they're like, hey,
Yeah.
listen, I need you to please stamp this form so I can go and get my maintenance money. All right. And as they're talking to you, you realize that they are actually in a deeply abusive relationship, and that's going to be the problem. But they're not even aware of it yet. They have no idea about this yet. Have any of you guys watched 90
Okay.
Day Fiancé before the 90 days?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes. So there's that one couple,
Works on my nerve.
Tiger Lily and Anand, right?
Okay, I'm not
Season 7.
currently watching, but yeah.
Okay, well, you need to get it, but
Okay.
never mind. Okay, I'll private message you. But basically, there's all the red flags. Okay, so now it's just, Sophia, you have seen this situation arise, right? They are pre-contemplation. What do you do?
I do a manipulative little thing where I plant seeds and I ask questions that make them think about it. I have a lot of pamphlets with information on this in my space, in my counseling space. So I'd be like, grab a few pamphlets on your way out, have a look through it. Call me if you want to speak about anything or if anything comes up for you. It was so nice
Perfect.
to see you.
Perfect. You see what Sophia did not do there? Sophia didn't say, listen, actually, you have a problem with an abusive partner. We should address that rather. All right. What she did do was she said, listen, There's these resources. If you feel you can talk to me about things, do reach out to me. She opened the doors without pointing out the problem fully and outright. Okay. Cornelia, I haven't heard your voice today. How are you, Cornelia? Okay, maybe.
I
Oh, there
think
we
I am well. Sorry, I was having problems with my mic, but I am well. I am in class. I am listening
are. Good.
and present.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Cornelia, right?
Yes.
Which part do you think between contemplation, preparation, action is most of the work done by the auxiliary social worker or the counselor? In which of those three stages is most of your work?
Mm. I think I would have to go with the maintenance.
Okay.
I say maintenance because it is easy to say this is what I want or this is the direction in which I would like to go to. And to keep someone or to keep even myself in that direction and in that space. I think
Hmm.
the maintenance, because we have to always be on our toes and make sure that we are directing or doing what we are supposed to do and keeping in line, basically.
Okay. So whose responsibility is the maintenance, Cornelia? Is it your client or yours responsibility?
It's the client's responsibility.
So they should be doing most of the work there, yes?
Yes.
Okay, good, 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 good. Thank you, Cornelia. Thanks for contributing. It's tough to contribute as you've just entered, but thank you for that. All right, I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Um, Shakir, I haven't heard your voice for a bit.
He was eating supper.
Oh, must be nice. Must be nice.
Too nice.
Even me, I wish I could live this life, Shakir. All right. So, which of these three stages, contemplation, preparation, action, would you then say the social worker is overtly involved in, or the counselor is overtly involved
Contemplation.
in? Okay. Contemplation.
The
All
person
right.
is still thinking.
Mhm.
It depends. Okay, it depends on the case also. Sometimes the social worker is called in. They don't want the social worker.
Mhm.
Uh,
That's
so
pre-contemplation.
because the social worker is also, it could also be pre-contemplation.
Mhm. Okay. So if they don't want the
So
social worker,
they
they haven't even
themselves.
contemplated.
So if they do call in themselves, then it's at preparation and action.
Okay. Right. Safia, you've got something to say there?
Yeah, I
Which,
think
which,
it's preparation.
all right. Jackie, what do you say?
Sorry, are you still asking which one the social worker is most involved in?
Yes. Where's the most involvement?
I think in contemplation. That or preparation, but contemplation, I think.
Okay. Bonnie, where do you put them?
I'll go with contemplation.
Contemplation. All right. So
Yeah.
this is this is the model I want you to pay attention to. Right? Can I? I don't know. Can I? Yeah. Okay. If I can draw this. Right. Okay. Perfect. So this is the model you are going to think about. Right. But I want to change color. Okay. This is the model you're going to think about. Right. Over here, from this point to this point, we have pre-contemplation, right? They don't even know that there's a problem, everything stays exactly as it is. Right? From that point to that point, we have contemplation. We feel the emotion growing, right? And building the drive to change it. From there to there, we have preparation. Usually preparation is followed by swift action, right? And then maintenance is from there on, with this being the new norm. Okay. Now, we're going to use the top to show the social worker's involvement, or no, the bottom to show the client's involvement, right? So each person has 100% effort that they can put in, right? Before the client knows that there's a problem, they are fully responsible for the problem. So it's 100. Once they start contemplating the problem, right, they might need some help, but they are still quite largely responsible for it, right? Once they have to prepare, they don't have necessarily the tools available to them. They have the problem, right? They need the guidance, they need the structure, they need the answers, right? So the client maybe brings about 30 to 40% of it, right? In action, they then drop back to 80 because you can't make them do anything they want to do, but you can encourage them. And finally, we're back to 100. Okay. Now, remember, you're working side to side with your counselor. So your responsibility as a social worker before people know that they have a problem is 0, unless you're an activist or something like that. You don't even know this person yet. You cannot be involved, right? When it comes to contemplation, 20, because you can't tell them what the problem is because you don't know exactly what they've lived. They need to know what their issues are. 20. Preparation, you have the tools. And it's the most important aspect. So then your 70% of your effort goes into it. 70% of your sessions is guided towards preparing for change. Then, once they take action, you're 20%. You're just encouraging, moving, and checking the actions. But they are responsible for taking the action. And finally, maintenance. Oh, wait, maybe they're at 90. Some encouragement there. Right? They may be doing 10. Right? Because they're largely their responsibility. Right? So the most important would be preparation. A lot of the time, people want to move to action or they want to spend their time in contemplation. Right? It doesn't help to contemplate overtly about the problem. Yes, I've got this problem. It must be a problem. I'm sure it's a problem. At some stage, the action needs to happen. But before the action is preparation. If this is not given 70% of your focus in preparation, the action will fail and the maintenance won't even take place. Right? So I want you to get into the habit of spend 70% of your time defining, redefining, putting together the resources, right? And then let the how take care of itself largely. Right? The why is strong enough, the how takes care of itself. This is the concept that we're trying to follow with this. Does that make sense up to there?
Yes.
Yes, it makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm screen grabbing as I go along so I can remember.
Thought nice of you. I just discovered the pen function now, so I'm very excited to be using it. Guess what you'll be having on all your presentations from now on is me scribbling. All right. Okay, good. All right. Preparation is where you're asking the important questions. It's where you're doing the motivation. It's where you're finding the sources, the strength, the resources. That's it. Action, let's be honest, right? Sophia, you've engaged with so many projects, and I'm about to wrap up the class, right? When you, at your center, let's say you guys are going to open up the CD or the special needs space, right? Right? Before the special needs space, you didn't even know you needed one. Right? Contemplation, you start thinking, crap, we have all these people that need special needs care, right? We should probably do it, right? If you are not If you are,
Mhm.
sorry, if you're super prepared, you've got your resources, you've had all your meetings, you've had all your discussions, everybody knows what they're doing, a lot of effort has gone into it. How quickly does the action happen after that? Quite
I was
smoothly, no?
politics, so
Yes, but I'm saying once you've sorted it and
according
you've prepared it and you've laid the
yeah,
ground, and
according to me, we in action. The board doesn't even know that we're in action, so that's a bit tricky to ask me.
yes, but I'm saying
Um, but yeah,
imagine a project in general.
the sooner you jump into action, the easier it will be to identify stumbling blocks and get rid of it, and reach your end goal sooner
So
than
I'm going to
later.
posit a different idea. The more prepared you
Okay.
are, the easier you
Mm-hmm.
can identify stumbling blocks before they even occur. Yes, there are some that will only occur during action,
Mm-hmm.
but preparation and good preparation allows you to
Mm-hmm.
address things you didn't even know. So if you've got all the tools ready to make this meal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, let's think of a meal, right? We're all ladies in this class. We're going to make a meal, right? A majority of the time should be spent, sorry, in preparing all the steps, right? You prepare the meat,
Yeah.
you take it out the freezer, you cut the vegetables, you cut the onions, you have all of these things ready to go. The action itself
Mm-hmm.
is quite small in comparison. Now you're just putting stuff together and allowing the process to follow and solving problems as it arises.
Yeah.
But because you prepared, you can already foretell where the weak points are and where the issues will come up, right?
Yeah.
So that's the
Right,
same.
that makes sense. That makes sense
When
because, as you
mm,
say, the more you are prepared, the more you can foresee actions. There, you might have all the pros and cons down, and whatever might come, you are able to solve it or have an idea or a way to solve it. That makes
be-
sense.
because you will know which tools you
Makes
have
sense.
because you've prepared, right?
Okay.
Of
So
course, this
can I
is
throw
not
a spanner in the works?
overall. 100%, let me just give this disclaimer. This is not overall,
Okay.
right? I'm not saying this is if you prepared, nothing will arise that you don't know about. No, things will arise through the process. But your first port of call will always be, wait a second, what do I have that I can pull up to solve this problem? What can I do to resolve this? Right? And the first place your brain goes is, what have I prepared? Right? If your preparation is shaky, when a small problem arises, you suddenly feel off kilter because you don't actually know what you have and don't have to be able to solve the problem. Okay, Sophia?
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with that. I just feel like in the space of social work and so on and so forth, there's many of us that are very pedantic and OCD, and we
Mm-hmm,
get lost in preparation
mm-hmm.
and we never really get down to action. So
Yeah,
I would put a word of caution and a deadline for preparation so that action actually happens, because there's a lot of talking that happens and there's a lot of da da da
a
da 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 da
hundred
da da.
percent, 100%.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah,
we must put a time frame on preparation, um
100%.
so
And
that
the
it
same
for
goes
action can
for, yeah. And Sophia's 100% correct, right? Contemplation, your time in it, you don't need a time limit because you don't know that it's not a problem. Contemplation, you cannot just have session where you're thinking about the problem, obviously, right? So that is
20
maybe
sessions.
20%. You just know that there's a problem. You've defined the problem a little bit. You know it's there. Then, right, preparation also, right? In terms of being without a deadline, it's very dangerous. You cannot forever be preparing for the recipe and not making the food, right? So you as the session coordinator, as the team leader or as the therapist or as the social worker, you need to say, listen, we're going to spend 1 or 2 sessions, 3 sessions preparing, but now I find that we're stuck in the rut of preparation, right? We reach a saturation point. In each of these stages, you reach a saturation point. Pre-contemplation reaches a saturation point where a person's life is too saturated with the problem and they realize they have a problem that leaks over.
Mhm.
Contemplation reaches the point where a person gets frustrated thinking about it and they say, no, I need to do something. And then we get to preparation. This must also then have a point where it leaks into action, right? Pre-contemplation, I don't know, I'm hungry. Contemplation, yeah, let me have a meal. Preparation, let me get the ingredients. You can't forever be getting the ingredients because this all still exists. This whole section here still exists, right? It needs this bit over here. So yes, this is vital. It holds the two together as such, but you need to move into the space. And I agree with Sophia completely. And that's where we get to like motivational interviewing and action stuff, which we should do a lot of next year. All right. Perfect. I see I've gone over time today, so I'm going to end it over there. I want to wish you guys all a lot of strength with your studying. I notice I'm not getting, let me just switch the recording before I go on my rant.
You're not getting what?
Assignments.
Hey,